Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Monday's edition of National Matters. I am your pastor, Pastor Chiluba, and I must state from the onset that my wife and I have believed, and we have believed and convinced ourselves that Zambia can develop to the status of a first world, if at all that term is befitting. We are equal to the task. This is a great nation. God has given us all the resources. He has given us all that it takes for us to develop like Singapore, to develop like Japan, to develop like South Korea, and better than some of the countries who have no natural resources like Zambia. And tonight, I have in the studio with me Professor Michael Munkumba, who is going to help me discuss the role of banks in the developing world. And also, our brother Smata is just on the way, a little bit delayed, but we will be together in a few minutes. Professor, welcome to the National Matters.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much.
I like what you say about Singapore. I am never tired of you repeating how Singapore developed.
Yes.
And you said that at one time Zambia was better, or say something about Singapore.
Thank you, Pastor. That's it's a topic that Zambians should hear about a lot. There is a book written by the first Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, and it's titled "From Third to First World." It's a very common book now, a huge volume.
Can we find it in shelves in Zambia?
Yes, it's possible. Yes, in our bookshops it's there. It's some 700 pages plus. From third to first world. And you're looking at a country that is not very different from us when it got independence. I think it got independence 1 year after Zambia. At the time it got independence, they didn't even have water to drink in the country. They were importing water from Malaysia. They have no natural resources. They have no land to speak about. It's a city-state. No land, no natural resources. The advantage they had was, if it could be called that, having a coastline. So, and so it's a good place for shipping. It's on a shipping lane, and so they had only that. And the Prime Minister said, "Look, we only have our people. The only resources we have are our people." So the focus was essentially on, the major one was education. Have an educated population. That's one. And then two, hire the best brains into government. Wherever they can be found, hire them, the best brains into government. And so government became so efficient in the way it worked that it was actually leading the private sector. All the infrastructure, and by that I mean including technology, was led by government. Because they had all the brains. So they have an effective civil service. And then to that, integrity. So zero tolerance to corruption. And a good story in that book is where, when you go to Singapore, you are told this story all the time. So when
You've been there, of course.
Yes, we went to Singapore Civil Service College and we were trained there for a bit. And they give you all these stories. They said one time, the Prime Minister was going to work, and his father requested for a lift. Sani dropped me in town somewhere, and the Prime Minister said, "I'm sorry, Dad, today I'm driving a government vehicle, not my personal one, so I can't give you a lift." So he didn't give a lift to his father because it would be abuse of public property. So integrity, serious integrity. So they follow the law to the letter. If you are crossing roads, and the first time I went there, were crossing roads. It was red for pedestrians, green for vehicles. But there were no vehicles. So a friend of mine and we just hit the road. I mean, there are no cars. But we saw quickly halfway across the road that across the road, the other guys who are Singaporeans were not crossing the road. Then we look back, all the other Singaporeans were not crossing the road. So they wait until it goes green for pedestrians. It doesn't matter that there are no cars. So embarrassed, we just quickly dash into the crowd. They follow the laws to the letter. And so, yeah, from 1965 or so, Singapore grew to become first world, from being third world just like us. And you are right, by the time they were being independent, they couldn't be compared to Zambia. We are way, way far ahead of them.
Really?
Yeah, but they are now first world.
So you are saying that leadership is what is at stake?
Let me just set this so that they can hear me properly. Can I be? I hope I can be heard. But a director, I hope I'm being heard. Thank you. Let me just. Let me just make sure that I can be heard properly, so that when I explain, everyone can get what I'm saying. Bwana Director, am I okay?
Thank you about that. I hope you can be heard.
Yes, indeed.
Please say something. You were saying about Singapore. I'm interested in that story.
Yes. It's an interesting country. I mean, you go there, you can't stop learning. I mean, you're looking at a country that really, if we had also kept the pace, we should have been way, way ahead of a country like Singapore that has no natural resources. Water had to be imported, so they had to really work out how to even meet such a basic thing as water. Now, last time we spoke about Zambia having 40% of the water of SADC, and here we are
60%.
Yeah, others say 60%, so 40 to 60%, and Singapore didn't even have water to drink at it by the time they were getting independent. Because
is it a bigger country than Zambia?
No, it's a city-state. It's just a city. They don't have any land.
My goodness. And they are more richer than Zambia?
Oh yeah, I mean, their GDP per capita, we can't even talk about it. They're probably around 60-something thousand, if I remember properly, per person, per annum, US dollars, 60-something thousand. Ours is, I think, I don't know if we haven't even dropped to 900. If we are 1,000, that's fortunate.
Apart from leadership, we are coming to the banks. I'm not diverting because this will make us understand also where we're going.
Yes.
Apart from leadership, what would you say misses in Zambia?
That's a good question, Pastor. You know, leaders come from the society. And this perhaps is a challenge that we often face. That you choose leaders or people you put into leadership positions, and you expect them to act suddenly in a way different from the society they've come out of. Our leaders, Kenyan's leaders, the African leaders, world leaders, they come from the society that they live in, and so they will reflect the culture of that society. The major change must occur in the society itself. Then that society will put out leaders that are like themselves. So when we see leaders we don't like, just know that we don't like ourselves because they are part of us. We are the ones who even said, particularly for government, okay, private sector, you know, there are serious interviews and they can choose, they can kick you out and fire you anytime. But government, there are 5-year cycles. So people are elected, and for 5 years they run the show. So they are like us. So to answer your question, yes, leadership is often a challenge, but that is a symptom to me. The challenge is the society itself. What is our culture as a society? Culture, say, towards work, culture towards, say, public resources, culture towards, say, issues of integrity again, issues of work ethic. What is our culture towards work? Do we see it as a service where I should do my best, or I can't work beyond my salary attitude? So when you interrogate those things in the society, then we can begin to interrogate what is happening with our leadership.
How long, especially Singapore, how long did it take?
About 40 years. About 40 years. Over a period of 40 years, they moved from third to first world. Over a period of 40 years. But you remember, they started when things moved rather slowly in the world. Now things move faster. So for us, we wouldn't have to wait for 40 years. Things are moving faster than the time of the 1960s and 1970s and 1980s. Things are faster. So we should be able to develop faster than it took Singapore.
I am just amazed, Professor, at the fact that we are, how many years now since independence?
58 years.
58 years?
Yes.
We still haven't moved
Yes.
to a level where it is acceptable.
I usually used to say that any leadership that will come into any country and work on the culture of that country, we can then talk about mindsets of the country. They will have done a lot more than just focusing on hard things. Infrastructure, what have you, those are important. But if the people's mindsets don't change, then nothing will work. Nothing will work. Or it will work very slowly.
One of the other things, Professor,
Yes.
by the way, Brother Smata, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Hello, Professor.
Thank you, my brother. How are you?
I'm okay.
Welcome.
One of the things that puzzles me, I happened to visit the West Indies, and one of the countries that I visit a lot with my dear wife is Antigua, which to cross the country from the furthest point
Yes.
to the furthest point,
The diameter.
with traffic inside,
Yes.
traffic lights inside,
Yes.
it takes you 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you cross the country.
Yeah.
In width, about 30 minutes, you are on the other side. But Professor, that country is developing at a phenomenal stage. And the people there, most of the hotels, the supermarket, they are owned by the indigenous.
There you are.
1987, when I went there, 1987, their money was the Eastern Caribbean dollar. It was 3-1. To today, it's still 3-1.
Exactly.
And the way they develop, the way they build, what is wrong with Zambia?
Or with Africa.
With Africa, Brother Smata, probably you can join
I think
to punch some holes in some of these things.
the professor is very right when he mentions the aspect of starting with culture. Yeah. Let's put it into perspective. For instance, Luanda. The size of Luanda, it's even unfair to compare to Zambia.
Really?
Yeah, because the Copperbelt province is 5,000 square kilometers, bigger than Luanda.
Copperbelt province.
Just the Copperbelt province. The Western province is 6 times bigger than Luanda. Let's not talk about Zambia. You got Singapore. It's about the size of Lusaka district. Yeah, the size of Lusaka district. Look at Mauritius. So when you begin to put in the size of the aspect of size, And then you ask yourself, what did they do right? It's culture. The way you do things. Basically, that's the most basic definition of culture. The way you do things. So it's the attitudes, for instance.
But, Rasmata, when you talk about Rwanda, that has not been their culture. How come within a few years they've transformed
25 years,
themselves?
yes. They've transformed it.
Yeah.
They've changed their culture.
Yeah.
I'm sure before that they had never been to Rwanda, but they must have had the African culture.
Yes.
Where staying in a dirty place
Yes.
Was normal.
Yeah.
is normal.
Yeah.
Garbage next door is normal.
Yeah.
But then suddenly there are towns we see from pictures, from television, it's clean. You see the point?
It's become the
It's culture.
cleanest in Africa, I'm told.
I think in the top 10 of the world.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a change of behavior, and unfortunately that is not addressed in Zambia or in most of Africa. What's addressed is the economy. Now, for me, the economy is like I put it, the engine in the car.
Yeah. Or even the river delta.
Right. It's just the engine in the car, in the whole car. Now, even if the engine is running right, even if you repair it or service it, but there are no wheels, there are no chairs to sit in the side of the car, there's no driving wheel. You see the point?
Yeah.
It has to be seen holistically, this thing about changing or getting better. It really has to. I've not been to Tanzania, but I've heard stories of those who frequent Dar es Salaam and coming back.
There.
He did.
Almost
The last
30 years.
5 years or so with the last president,
Magufuli.
a lot changed, didn't it?
I mean, absolute transformation, my brother. Absolute transformation.
With Magufuli.
Yeah.
While we watched, absolute transformation from one country. Okay, first they hit lower middle income country status 5 years ahead of schedule. Within that 5 years of his presidency, Tanzania became lower middle income country. We also hit it sometime, but we are not there now.
Under Mwanawasa. Yeah. But the point is, look at the speed at which they move, because I think they address the issue of what one would say are the components of culture.
Yes.
You know, behaviors, attitudes,
Yes.
a lot of other things. Yeah, I mean, I get amazed. This morning, I was speaking to my local baker. By the way, you know, they have introduced baking of bread in our village. Yeah. Okay. Yesterday, I woke up and I was found there was no bread with my team. So I said, okay, it's only a short distance here. Let me dash there. 8 o'clock, eh? I got to the shop, closed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I drove back. The day before, the same thing happened. So finally, yesterday, when this morning, I beg your pardon, when I was driving into town, I met him along the way going to the shop. It was around 8:30. And I said to him, oh, is this the time you opened? Because I've bounced twice. Now, your loaf of bread is very cheap for me because buying it in Lusaka, 17 kwacha, then I add fuel, time. That's a very expensive loaf of bread.
Absolutely.
Now, when it's brought near here, I said to myself, no more bread from town. So he says, yeah, sorry. Yadilo Kamailo. You know.
Yes.
That's the truth. Because it rained, you couldn't
Business
open your
closes.
shop. Rather, shouldn't the bakery be closing at 8:30? Because when do we eat bread? Eat breakfast.
Yes.
You eat bread.
After breakfast, that's when he comes.
Yeah, that's when he's coming. So if you buy bread after breakfast, when will we eat it?
Yeah.
At lunch? Tomorrow? And then I said to him, imagine if I then said, could I take Wakuya before 9?
Yeah.
He would have lost the customer.
You have lost business.
Yeah.
You are waiting for the customer to react.
Yeah.
Instead of you causing the customer to react. Because if you opened at 6, everybody begin to think, let me get the fresh one by 5:30, I'm back home.
Yes.
It's them that will change, not you.
Yeah.
And say, Namvela. And say, okay. So those kind of things have to change, Pastor.
Yeah.
They really have to change.
Yeah.
You know, Brother Samata, Professor, I am very passionate about this nation. I have no interest to get into politics.
You don't have to.
No.
And God knows my heart.
Yes.
But Pastor,
I have
you
no
don't have
interest to be a politician. I've had those opportunities. But my heart throbs
Indeed.
when I see what we can do.
Yes.
When I see Zambia, what we have,
Yes.
I tend to say, Lord, who will help us?
I was privileged when I was recruited into banking. One of my training centers was Karachi, Pakistan. So on our way to Karachi, Pakistan, we had a flight problem in Nairobi. So we ended up in Dubai. It was not on the schedule for us to stop in Dubai and be long, but we ended up in Dubai 6 hours. And on the way going. So we were accommodated in Dubai. From the airport to our hotel, I was amazed to see desert for the first time in my life. It was it was like an ocean of sand. We got into the town, very small place, backward. I even began to argue with my friends. I said, I think Lusaka, oh my God.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? 1988. Like Prof was referring to currency, the dirham was 3 to $1. 1988.
Still is.
I had the privilege of going back with my family on holiday, 2008. 20 years later, 20. Had no opportunity to remember anything that I saw.
No desert.
Really?
I was privileged to go to Francistown. I think I was a first-year student at the university. My mom was so happy that I entered university. She decided, she tricked me into it, to send me to Francistown to buy wool
In Botswana.
in Botswana. And I arrived in Francistown by train from Harare. It was Bulawayo. It was at night, so I didn't see anything. And dashed to the 2 hotels they had at the time, Tet and Grand, stone throw away from each other. Checked into Grand, 20 pula or something. I didn't like it. So I was too shy, afraid to tell them to refund me. So I just quietly walked out with my rucksack to Tet. Checked into Tet, it was 18 pula. When I went into the room, I decided to go back to Grand. In the morning, when the sun was coming out, I walked out of the hotel. All I could see were grass-thatched houses all over the place. And I said to myself, did I check out of the train at the wrong station? And I asked him, I said, excuse me, tell me, what town is this? He says, Francistown. What? Kapiri, by those standards, Kapiri Mposhi, by those standards, those days, was a far much better town.
No way.
Couldn't compare. Then years later, I had the privilege of driving through Francistown after deciding to use the Livingstone route through Botswana.
And Kasane.
I decided to stop in Francistown. I even walked around, say, am I still in the same city? What have they done in the last 20 plus years? Whilst we stood still. Honestly, we stood still. What is it? So those are the issues. Havaroni itself. When I finally go to Havaroni, and then you compare to Lusaka, you say to yourself, wow, we're better off in Lusaka. It's a good town.
But today it's a different place.
Oh, no. I mean, you can compare. What is it that I think it's attitude. It's not just money.
Okay. Attitude, culture is one. Professor,
Sir.
you've traveled more than I've done, and you've taught in many universities, and you've seen, together with Brother Smarter there, who is shy of just being called a professor. But one thing that amazes me is that the pastors that began the ministry of a pastor in America years after me, they've got better buildings and better churches than I do. They are far much junior. And I asked one of them why. He said to me, you know, Pastor Chiluba, here in America, the banks look for people to finance. They finance a vision. Once you have a vision, once you have this, they will give you money. And I said, that is the opposite of the country I'm coming from. You may have a vision, you may have a dream, they will arrest you for that vision.
they want collateral.
By the banks.
Collateral.
They will call for collateral. You know, you are thinking you are in a better country. It reminds me of these two farmers who always met on Monday. They were Christians. And this one says, my friend, how was church? They would start with church. And this one says, usual. Says, what do you mean by usual? Says, our church always is ndingo, 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 ndingo. He says, you are far much better. At our church, it's ndi. So, what I'm saying, Brother Smarter, you've been a banker. Are the banks helping us to develop this nation? Because while you can't roll out money, Professor,
Yes, sir.
trust me, give me $1 million today and say, Pastor, here's 1 million. Zambia will be so shocked. What will come out of that 1 million? So are the banks helping us?
I was privileged to practice banking. Now I'm on the other side, I teach banking. The one thing that struck me quite early in the banking world was the attitude towards Zambians. First, I used to think, am I in the right place? Because I saw most finance in the early days went to foreigners. Most finance went to Zambians of Asian origin, Zambians of South Africa or Europe origin, and very few indigenous Zambians. Very few. And I kept thinking, I think it's the usual thing, they don't pay back credit. So therefore, monies do not go to them. But as I progressed, I realized it wasn't about credit. It was about who owns these banks. Yeah, let's give ourselves a scenario. I go to India, for example, and I start a bank, or a Zambian bank sends me to India, or Pakistan, or maybe even England. Who am I most likely to attract as customers? Zambians, if there are any out there, or Nigerians. Our friends are everywhere. Are you with me? And they are the ones that I may find myself financing, and ensure that I've got a profit, and I keep my job, and my contracts are renewed. Do you think I will go to India to use banking as a tool to develop India? I don't think
that's
so.
the question,
No.
yes.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
And as long as we in this country think that banks can be tools to develop Zambia without them being 85% Zambian, You see, they put a Zambian at the top.
Teaching.
Indigenous Zambian, MD.
Teaching.
But the people below that person are all foreigners. Or they remove all the authority that the previous MD had, who was foreign, and then the Zambian MD is just a figurehead. Literally, an MD who cannot allow an overdraft. And that's been happening in the market. Where you go to an MD and you seek a facility, they will refer to you to a credit director or refer your application to the headquarters of that organization. And most probably you won't get that facility. So all these are issues that are in the banking sector, and they are not being really addressed.
I went to Professor just last week. I went to one of my banks, I won't mention one of them, and I said to the branch manager, can you give me just an overdraft of 30,000 kwacha? I want to use it.
Yes.
He looks at me and he says, Pastor Chua, 30,000. Put it in writing. And just bring us collateral. I thought he was joking. I said, excuse me bringing collateral
For
over 30,000.
By the way, how much are your tires? The 4 tires on your
the vehicle.
I just bought one from 4 from South Africa.
5.
8,500 rands one.
I see. So 30,000 kwacha?
Huh?
That's more than what you
Yeah,
have.
so 30,000?
Yeah.
So rather than say, bring collateral, the banker should have said, give us your 5 tires. So that's the attitude.
So I
Pastor.
thought he was joking. I just thought he was. When I became serious, I said, look, check the account. How much money
Turnover doesn't matter.
push in here?
Yeah.
Nope.
Surely you can ask
For collateral.
for me to bring collateral. I was so amazed, Brass Matter, that I thought, Professor, what is this?
Yeah.
Let's go back. 1964. It's documented. It's in history. Our parents, when they began to run the country, saw that need, the one that we're expressing here. That's why particularly Kaunda nationalized the Commercial Bank and National Commercial Bank and made Zambia National Commercial Bank.
There were 2 banks.
Yes,
Commercial
into
bank.
one.
Yeah.
In fact, one of them, I think the ladies used to put on red skirts, red jackets. The other one was green. And these banks seem to have been in the federation because you found the same names in Malawi. Anyway, they formed one bank. Why? History has it that the banks existing at the time supported the settlers. There was no bank for the indigenous people. That's why Zanaco was made, created for that. Later on, of course, it becomes a profit issue. Is it making profits? Let's sell it. Let's sell the shares. Let's research. But it was made for that purpose. Later on, private banks arise. I used to write an article in the Times of Zambia called Windows on Banking. And I would analyze these banks. In fact, I began by analyzing their capital structure. And at the time, I found that there was only one indigenous bank, and that was Investrust. My own former banks were not Zambian in the capital structure. They were Zambian only because they purported to be owned by Zambians. So 90% of this industry was in the hands of foreigners. How many times have you heard the Minister of Finance? Sometimes even the President in his speeches. And I'm looking at the whole spectrum, not politics. Will say something like, interest rates are very high. You know, we as government, we've tried this, we've tried that, but these things are not moving.
Correct.
Who moves them? They're still up there. They are still up there. At the time when the government, for instance, in 91, began to change the gist of the economy and bring in what they called market forces. Treasury bills began to become very attractive. Banks stopped borrowing. I mean, lending. They stopped lending. And all the surplus funds went into investments of treasury bills. And windfall profits were made.
Yeah, without any
I think I remember my first bonus was at about that time. But if you remember correctly, a lot of local banks again were created, which followed after the profit. Now, when there was a reverse in the treasury bills, most of those banks sank. Are you with me? However, it's a whole mixture of attitudes. But one attitude is that we've not had a bank. We do not have a bank, as far as I'm concerned, that has the empathy for the Zambian community. And maybe if I could explain, empathy, sympathy. Yeah? My view, sympathy is outward, looking in. You know, when you are driving in the rainy season and you see people who are being soaked in rain, and you say to yourself, oh my,
so sorry.
Look, so sorry.
And you do nothing about it.
And you drive past.
Yeah.
Maybe even splash them with water.
Yeah, it's sympathetic.
That is sympathetic. What we do not have in this country is empathy.
From banking.
Empathy is looking from the inside outward, in the shoes of that person. I don't know how many bankers I've told recently. I said, I wish now that I've been this side of the bank, I would go back inside. For the simple reason that inside the bank, they don't know what's happening out here. And even they've got a job, they get a salary, all they have to do is tick the boxes. Ask him, does he have security, collateral, or what they wrongly call collateral? Because even in banking, when you look at it very, very closely, the word is security.
Yeah.
Collateral is, but look in the dictionary, collateral is parallel. The other word, synonym, you would use is parallel,
like side by side.
Side by side, extra. That is what that word collateral comes. And in fact, the American Army was the first one to make it popular. In Vietnam,
Collateral damage.
right. When they were asked, how come you killed villagers and children and everywhere? So that was collateral damage. The enemy hid among them. Are you with me? So when somebody says to me, do you have collateral? I immediately say to myself, illiterate. Seriously. Collateral comes after my security is not sufficient. So I go to the bank, pastor, and they ask me, what's your security? I say, my shoes. And then they say, no, these are not sufficient to cover our lending to you. So I go to Prof. I say, Prof, my brother, please help me. And then he says, okay, here are my title deeds. So his title deeds is collateral. My shoes is security. Or, smarter, give us security. I have nothing. Are you with me? Now, because I have nothing, and then I have to rely on you, pastor, on your asset to cover my debt, that is collateral. And I'm sorry, even when you read the law, unfortunately it was drafted by people who are ignorant of that word. They've used collateral right through. The word is security. And then collateral comes second. Anyway, there's something they ask for. But when I went to banking school many years ago, first time, my professors said, they in fact used the word BARS. B-A-R-S. Says, when you are going to look at credit, and I think if there's a field of banking that I received a lot of training in, was credit. You first look at the borrower. Who is the borrower?
Pastor
What
Chiluba.
is his character? You know, does he have the abilities to do what he claims to do, wants to do? Are you with me? Borrower. When you are satisfied, you then move to amount. Is the amount he's asking sufficient for his project? Or is he asking for more or less? Because both have risks. And then how is he going to repay? Now even there, on repayment, we are stuck with a traditional repayment system where we have to pay back every month. Who said? Who said? I mean, otherwise, you can borrow today, Pastor, and in 6 months pay the full amount plus
Interest.
the interest. You know? But here, every month. You know why? Because it assumes you are working in a regular job where you get a salary every month. So when you're in the informal sector, like we are,
Like us.
there is no salary every 21st or 30th.
No.
I may not go with an income like that for 4 months. And yet I have one project that feeds me for the next 4 years. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you go to a bank and say, can I borrow today 30,000? I have a quotation here approved for 60,000. But, you know, it's only payable at the end of the project, which in my view will take 6 weeks. He looks at you and he says,
No.
but you have to pay installment.
Every month.
You see, like we are in a, we're not changing. We're not moving as bankers because it's in black and white. You tick the boxes. Huh? I have been to a banker before and I closed my account immediately. Seriously, I had an approved purchase order for some services I was rendering to them for 60 million kwacha, which is 60,000 today. So I went to my regular banker and I said, listen, here's the paper. You can phone them. I just need 30,000. I want to buy a projector, I want to buy this and that, but 30,000, personal loan. They asked me for what you asked. What you asked? Collateral. So I looked at the young lady and I said, you start with collateral? I thought the S in the bars, security,
Is the last
thing you look at. So you've already examined me as a borrower, you've already examined my amount, you've already, my repayment. So you've followed all this. He says, no, but we're told not to lend without security. So I said, okay, so for 30,000, how much security would you need? And she said to me, title deed. I said, what? For my house? I should give you my house for 30,000 kwacha? But why don't you come and get title deeds for the gate? Just the gate.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be sufficient to pay off this loan if I can't pay. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Now these children, I think I have a right to do that. I'm a grandfather. Yeah? These children are brought into the bank, put in the front line to deal with customers.
In the firing line, yes.
Are you with me? With no training. Number one, they're just given a checklist. So you sympathize with them. And worse still, no empathy. No empathy.
No.
They don't get into your shoes and understand you.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, once upon a time, I was a branch manager. I can use many examples. A man walks into my office, I look at his face and he's distraught. He's down. I said, so what can you do? What can we do for you? He says, young man, you know the filling station down the road? I said, yes. That's mine. I ran that on a franchise from BP those days. And I've run out of petrol and I have no capital. They say, will not supply until I pay. Can you advance me this amount? And I said to him, you're a customer? Yes, we could, but I need to visit you. Can we go there right now? I drove to his filling station. And true, it was his filling station. We had it in our records. Are you with me? And I said to him, only one condition, sir. He says, what is that? I pay the check to BP. He says, yes, please go ahead. And we issued the check to BP. Within 3-4 days, he had paid back all that money.
There you are.
Can you imagine?
30 years later, I meet him at a funeral. And he walks up to me and says, Macho, I will forever be thankful to you. I said, why? What did I do? He says, well, you've forgotten me. I said, please remind me, sir. He says, you gave me 30 million kwacha without too much ado. Without security, without... I said, no, the security was BP. The security for me was that filling station you were running. And then I looked at, and we were computerized. I looked at your statement while we were chatting.
Yes.
I liked the turnover.
Yes.
I didn't have to know you as a person. So there's nothing to thank me for, sir. I think your gratitude is a bit misdirected. He was convinced it was me. But I said to myself, you can't have that today.
No.
And I mean, if Pastor Chiluba has to go through that, Pastor Chiluba. What about Mulenga out there and Chuvia and Sitari and what about them? They won't even go to the bank. No. Now, what's mushroomed? Kaloba.
Yeah.
What's mushroomed? Financial, microfinancing.
Yeah.
Me, I have said, and I'll repeat, if banks had empathy to the Zambian public, there would be no microfinancing institution out there.
Not even Kaloba.
Not even Kaloba.
Forget.
So recently when I saw an advert by CEEC, and they were talking about interest of 12%, I said to myself, my next knock is at this place. Because even these interest rates that we are charging, they are charging us. Maybe Bank of Zambia, if they are listening, should really consider the American style, where there is an APR. Is it annual percentage rate? Are you with me? Here in Zambia, they are hiding behind interest rates. They will tell you 28% per annum. It sounds low. But if you calculate the entire costs of getting that facility, it's actually 48.50. Why? 5% of the amount commitment fee, 5% of the amount arrangement fee, 5% is maybe even tea that you drank is also in the 6%. You get the point. If you add that to the 28 that they are saying is interest,
50%.
it's 50%. So they should just be saying our interest is 50% APR per annum. You get the point. So that you know the actual cost. Now, how many of us will sit and calculate all those other small things? How many of us?
And this is where it's confusing. Professor,
yes, sir.
When we were building this church, I went to another bank, one bank.
Yes.
They gave us 445 million. Then. Which is now 450,000 kwacha. And with the committee, the board members, we said this money is not enough. We bought tons of cement, blocks, we ordered steel, we imported steel from South Africa without any expenditure on other things. We had to put everything together. As you said, Rasmada, we forgot that the first month when we borrowed,
a month later,
we were required to pay 50,000
installment.
And you have done nothing yet to raise.
So the money which was in the bank, which we got, we started repaying.
They started taking it back.
Taking it back.
Yeah.
And from that 445,000, they got 45,000 as administrative fee.
Wow.
So we only
10%.
Yes. Nevertheless,
you failed to pay back.
We defaulted after some time. We defaulted after some time. And the unfortunate part of it I was taken to court. And I said, you people, let's restructure this. We restructured. We paid 280 million then.
So there was the 100 and something left.
So when we got there, they said, what you've been paying is just servicing the interest,
yeah.
not the principal. 280,000. Nevertheless, we appeared before court. And I said, Lord, I was not building a bar, I was building your church. And story short, one of my church members, I'm forever grateful with my wife. These Shalom Buses boys, they grew up in my church. Meshach and Mano, they said, Daddy, you can't lose this plot. Where are the churches? We're losing it. The day the judgment was supposed to be made, the judge attended some funeral somewhere, and they gave us, guess how much they demanded from us? With interest. 600 million.
Wow.
600 million, 3,000. And the boys paid that. You understand? Where is the 280 million? That's how we were left off the hook. But one person in the bank, I won't mention, he said, this is unfair. You know, Pastor, we have a case here. A white man in Mukushi came and borrowed $2 million. We went to recover the money. We only found the tractors. I'm sure the people are watching this story. They only found broken tractors and with one grader. Wow. 2 million siphoned out of the country. He was not prosecuted, not taken to court. Here I am, still a Zambian. And by the grace of God, Camnet is birthed. I'm still doing a service to my nation.
Yes, indeed.
What justification, Professor, can you...
Yeah.
Where would you run to? Chinzani?
Where you favor a foreigner above your own.
You know, the other point is, I sympathize with the commercial banks. It's the law. Yeah. In this country, we have a law which actually makes 90 days non-payment of principal plus interest. Your loan moves to loss, non-performing, in 3 months. Other jurisdictions, it's 2 years. I mean, I can borrow today. Mine also is a classic example. My current bankers, I still have them. I understand the environment they are working in. Yeah, I used to, 3-4 years ago, I would borrow to pay off school fees. So that the whole year, all I'm doing is fighting to pay back the loan, not fighting with headmasters. I will be. So I borrow, and then we have a crisis in the work area. No jobs. So I went to the bank. That's something Zambians you don't do. When you borrow and you start defaulting or having problems, walk to the bank. Go there and tell them, people, I'm in trouble. What I thought would come is not coming. Why are you afraid of them? You see, second to a hospital, banks is the next thing that deals with very personal issues of our lives. Can you imagine walking to the hospital? You are sick. Something is eating you up, you are dying. And the doctor says, what is the matter? I said, no, I've just got a headache, you know. I've just got a headache. Just a headache. I said, oh, yes, Panad. Because you did not disclose. You did not declare. And that I saw foreigners are better at. And better still, Zambians of Asian origin. There are very few, Pastor, who I came across who had a problem with their facilities, who never came to the bank and say, Sonny, I told you I will give you money on Friday. I've run into a difficulty. Others would even come and say, the money should have come on Friday, but I bought more stock. I saw a chance. But Zambians, you have to start moving around in discos, casinos, hoping to bump into them. majority, 90%, I must tell you. So when they came back to borrow, it was a bit difficult. So attitude, remember the point of attitude? That has to change. So I did. I walked into my banker and I said, you know, I'm into trouble. The recent announcement on Corona, you know, we were the first, me and my colleagues in the industry who are in workshops and training, and were the first to be hit. President ECO then came and announced that there was Corona in the country and no more workshops. You should have seen me where I was sitting at home. I froze. I could have died of a heart attack. Seriously.
Yeah.
So I walked into the bank the following day. I said, did you hear the president? He said, no more workshops. They canceled my jobs. This money I borrowed was supposed to be paid by that.
By the workshops.
So I'm in problems. So if you find I'm defaulting, it's because of this. No, we understand. A few days later, within the month, one of the clerks phoned me, found out why my installment hadn't come. I said, but I came to your bank. You mean it doesn't cascade it down to you to tell you that? I came to tell you that, Fiapena, life is difficult now. I may not be able to pay this loan, but let me tell you from my heart, you'll be paid. Yeah. No, but Mr. Smart, isn't there anything you can sell? I said, sell what? you just what I'm saying is that a person can lose a job today, by the way. Okay, now they like lending to people who are working. Those of us in the informal sector, they don't have facilities for us. Yeah. Formal sector, they are government employees or companies, and people are working because there's that monthly salary that they expect installments to come through. The person resigns. The person is sacked. The company goes down.
Then what?
Are you with me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now the banker is not ready for that kind of thing. He's not been trained to re-engineer facilities. He has no empathy. All he will say is court. Court. And the courts, unfortunately, don't say, Imwe, just go away and discuss this thing. You have to hear the matter. And the lawyers move in also. So now you are paying the bank, you are paying the lawyers. The bill is even far much higher. And you have noticed in Zambia, you lose a case in court, you pay the lawyer of the guy who brought you to court, as well as yours.
Yeah.
You know? I would have expected me to pay maybe the winning lawyer. Why should I pay my lawyer who failed to defend me? But
so, what you are saying was matter, Professor.
Sir.
If you were to come in, what should be the attitude of the banks towards developing Zambia?
This is the
because
question.
I am a firm believer that Zambia will be developed by Zambians.
Yes.
And not foreigners.
Yes.
What would you say should be the attitude?
Thank you, Pastor. It goes all the way back to the central bank, just like Brother Smarter said. So it starts with the central bank itself. We once had a long chat with Bank of Tanzania. We were training the Bank of Tanzania. And I remember asking the managers, I said, you know what? You emphasize too much on compliance side, supervision, compliance, you know, what does the law say? Are banks following this? But because I also had a lot of sessions with commercial banks. And the commercial banks' complaint was that the central bank was stifling them, or stifling them. They come up with innovative strategies, and the bank says, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. So I told the bank, the central bank, that you are supposed to be the leader of transforming the economy. Don't see yourself as merely compliance supervisors. There's also the innovation side. And you ought to open up the space so that banks can move in and bring innovative products. That was with the central bank. And there was a lot of reception to that. And the governor then we really, in fact, he got my book and he's now...
That was in Uganda?
No, that's Tanzania.
Tanzania, yeah.
But even Bank of Uganda, we went, I trained a lot of them also in the central bank. So that was the Reserve Bank. But when you come to the commercial bank, for me, the commercial banks should be seen as, Brother Smata was saying, they should be seen as a tools for development. For development. Developing an economy. Now, of course, commercial banks are private institutions, the majority of them, and again, as has been pointed out of the, 19 plus banks in Zambia, the majority are again foreign owned. The top 10, they are all probably mostly, apart from Zanaco, they'll be foreign owned. So they have shareholders, they have to pay dividends, so they have to make profit. That's only one side to me. The major side is for them to help grow the economy. When that is lacking, and I think in Zambia that's huge, even just between Zambia and East Africa. Since I came back to Zambia, the frustration for me with banking is roof high. Because first of all, I walk into the bank at 14:30, they have closed. I couldn't just believe it. I said, you close at, what time do you close at 14 hours? I said, you close at 14 hours. So who are you set up to serve? Yourselves or the public? I mean, your customers are working up to 17 hours. So why are you closing at 14 hours? Because in parts of Tanzania, for instance, East Africa, there are some branches that close at 20 hours.
20 hours?
20 hours. 18 hours, they are open. You walk in and you cash.
After you knock off,
yes, they save you for at least an hour minimum. Some even longer. The ones near markets, they will continue working. Now, yes, there's e-banking, yes, but the majority of Zambians are not on e-banking.
Cash economy.
You just go and find the queues in the banking hall, they are not on e-banking. So why are you closing at 14 hours? So you want them to run away from offices and down tools in order to come and queue in the bank. Are you supporting the economy? So for me, banks are really, they are tools for development. If they are not contributing to development that way, then something is wrong. Then the central bank ought to step in and literally begin to read them the Riot Act and say, no, we shall operate like this because we must support the economic development of the country.
Prof.
Yes, sir.
In India, they have what they call priority sector.
Correct.
And the priority sector, they've identified the vulnerable part of the economy. And banks are encouraged to lend 40% of their lending to the priority sector. It's not a law. It's moral suasion. So when they send their statements, they account assets and liabilities to the central bank, they have to show that 40% of their lending was to the priority sector. If they don't, because they are private, they are profit making, the central bank doesn't punish them. They just put them on the, like, there's a queue for something. Yeah. Those kind of banks will be at the end. Yeah, that's all they do. Yeah. Now, the problem I have seen in Zambia is that we are modeling our banking to England.
Which has even moved further.
Which is 200 years ahead of us.
Yes.
That's what we are modeling. Yeah. Even our checks and controls of the banking sector, they are based on what the Bank of England maybe was doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah. Are you with me? We don't want to model ourselves against a much powerful, much stronger developing country, like India, for instance. By the way, Indian banking started being organized far earlier than British. Yeah. The thing about banking, Pastor, is that it's not like accountancy. In accountancy, they have international standards. IFRS,
FRS.
Yeah. Which a Chinese accountant, a Russian accountant, a Zambian accountant have to apply. Banking is not like that. Banking actually, Zambian banking can be completely different from our 8 neighbors. That's the way banking is. I used to tell my students, I said, pass and hopefully get a job. And then one of them says, so I can't use this qualification in England. And I'd say to them, no, you can't. They said, what? But it's a diploma. I said, yes, of Zambian banking. Now, when you look in the curriculum again of the so-called Zambian banking, it's what the British were teaching 30 years ago. I've been to the institute a number of times. I said, revise this curriculum. Get people to write a Zambian banking curriculum, the needs of Zambia. Because these diplomas in England, they've stopped doing, I used to teach mail transfers. Long after mail transfers no longer existed in the banking world. And I'm saying to myself, even if I tell them a mail transfer is this, where will they apply it? Is it history I'm teaching or the latest? You know what I'm saying? We've got all these problems in the industry that nobody seems to be addressing. So why should we wait so long for them to be addressed?
So do politicians know this brass matter?
I don't know. I've spoken.
Professor, do politicians know?
I will give you an example.
Yeah.
The National Payments Systems Act was passed in 2007
Here
in Zambia to regulate the payment systems. You know, your cash, your clearing, your electronic transfers. I'm in a queue in the bank with MPs. Yeah. And one of my favorite MP was right behind me, so I was speaking with my neck behind me. And I said to him, Honorable, congratulations, we've finally brought a law in this country that will bring respect to checks. You won't believe it. The MP in front of me turned around and said, no, it's still being discussed. It's at committee level. So now he shouts across, where were you? Were you sleeping in the house? So
it has been passed.
It was passed, and the MP in front of me didn't know.
Yeah.
Then when I go and get this document, I quickly read through it. And definition, just definition. And I dare anyone listening to me now to go and check it. I looked at a definition of a check in the Zambian law. It read, payable on demand, that's what it's supposed to, a bill of exchange, payable on demand, full stop. That's the definition of the check worldwide. Are you with me? In Zambia it says, or determinable future date. I said to myself, oh my God, so a check is now useless in law. In practice, yeah, maybe, but in law. So I went to a minister in the MMD government. In fact, I met him. I didn't go. I met him. I said, Honorable, have you noticed that you have not defined the check correctly in the law?
In the law.
Oh, is that so? Which part? He was from, he spoke the same language as me. And then I said, the check, sir, it cannot be payable on a future determinable date.
The one which expires, sure.
It's just on demand. When it reaches the bank, it's demand. The banker must pay or not pay. Now, you are saying the banker can actually hold it.
For some time.
For some time. What?
Is it still there?
It's still there, as I speak to you now. It's never been amended. So when you say, do politicians know? We don't expect politicians to know. We expect the experts around them. Who? The Institute of Bankers. Who? The Bankers Association of Zambia. Who? The commercial banks themselves. To write to the minister.
And the
now
central
finance. That time, you know. And write to them and say, no, the law here has not been correctly defined. And the government, through parliament, will change. But now, if somebody was to take advantage of that, I doubt even whether the judges themselves have been alerted to that definition. What do you take him if he gives you a rubber check? If he puts, instead of 2022, he accidentally puts 2032. In Zambia, it's still valid. It's a determinable date, 32. So if you go back to him and say, now change, I meant to pay you 10 years from now. You accepted. You know what I'm saying? Now,
and go into the courts of law, that person would win.
Trouble, you'll be in a lot of trouble. Yeah, but the point is, these are the institutions that should be alerting.
Yeah.
I recently read a document. I'm not in banking full-fledged, but I'm concerned. I read a document written by the Bankers Association of Zambia. And I wrote back 3 pages later. A month later, I had to call and say, did you receive my letter? Yes. I know, at the next review, we are going to consider your thoughts. I said, but you didn't even acknowledge. You see, in Zambia, what's happening is that if you pursue a matter, it's made political. Wow, you have Tara. He just wants to know his side of the story. You get the point?
Yeah.
But yet, we are accepting a lot of wrong things. A lot. Me, I think the government should look at this issue of when a loan becomes bad. You cannot put it at 90 days. 2 years, yes. Because in a year from now, I struggle, I get a job. I should be able to walk freely and go back and say, oh, now I'm working.
Now
can I pick up my loan and finish paying it?
And there are certain things, you get a loan, they may not give you profit within 3 months.
Exactly. Yes. Like farming now.
Yes.
Yeah, fish farming, for instance, is not considered.
Yeah.
Agriculture, we are talking agriculture.
Yeah.
But the financiers have no consideration for agriculture. Now, here's the thing. As we speak now, the banks should be full of agriculture science students. The banks.
Yes.
If we really want to talk about agriculture, that is the first degree they should be looking at. You see, banking is a profession. Yeah? And your base degree can be anything as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
One of my closest friends was a civil engineer. And he was MD of a very big bank, #1 bank in this country. Civil engineer. He converted to banking. Why not? Because banking stands there. In India, I had the privilege of being there in 2010 under the auspice of the Institute of India, Bankers India. They actually send their diploma correspondence course to universities and say to them, while you are studying, whatever you've decided to study our diploma also. Sit our exams, so that when you are graduating, you have 2 things. And go and work in a bank. Because a Form 5 school leaver, he goes to UNZA, he gets an economics degree with merit, he sits in a bank with a 1-day seminar on credit, IE, and then he's dealing with proposals. I walk in there and I say, listen, I have got from the experts what I need for a fish pond, and I need 60,000 kwacha from you. But it takes 6 months for fish to be mature enough to sell. Are you with me? What does he know about fishing that he thinks I don't know?
An economist.
What?
An agriculture guy would know.
Or the bank should have divisions within itself. Fisheries, forestry, land development. In other countries like India, land development as a bank. A bank which deals with land development. This is your point. Kaunda had it right.
Yes.
I mean, let's give him credit.
Lima Bank.
All those banks that people were quick to liquidize and useless, unprofitable, the concept should not have died. Yeah. Import-export bank. So if I'm an importer, I'm an exporter, that's my bank.
Yes.
Because it's promoting my business.
Specialized.
What does any bank, you see, banks are not know-it-alls.
No.
Let me give you a picture, a scenario, Pastor. It's like walking into an economy and you find everybody is driving cars. Cars, not 4x4, you call them UVs.
Cars.
Just cars,
not SUVs.
4-door, you know.
Saloons.
They can be different, Toyota and that kind of thing. That's what we have in that economy. Are you with me? No trucks, no minibuses. So you go to, you get one of those and you dash to a company that sells furniture and you buy furniture. Will it fit in a taxi?
In the Vitz.
Are you with me? That's what we are expecting banks to do.
Commercial banks.
Things they were never intended
Designed
to do.
to do.
Banks were not intended to give mortgages nakana. They were not. Because they're dealing in short-term deposits.
Correct.
They They can only lend short term.
Yes.
Now they are lending long term.
Long term.
Do you see the risk
And
they are
they're
putting them
borrowing
at?
short from the deposit.
Yeah. Okay, there's a turnover.
Yeah.
Pastor. There's a turnover. But they are not meant for that. Hire a truck
For your furniture.
for your furniture. So you need to go to a bank that deals in agriculture.
Yeah.
And everybody in there, there are vets in there, for instance. I'll give you an example. And this is a true story, by the way. Somebody I knew crooked a very big bank. Crooked them.
In Zambia?
Yes. He went to borrow from them. No, if you need security. He says, no, I've got cows. You've got cows? Okay. We are coming on such and such a date to see them. As security. So he went back to his village, a close village to Lusaka, and went round to the families and said, you know, on a Saturday and such a
Bring
date at
your
9
goats.
o'clock, bring your cows.
So that they'll be in one place.
There are people who want to dig a deep tank for us. Are you with me?
So, and he was cheating.
All
of us.
yes. All the villagers came and there were cows, moo. So the bankers arrived in their suits and nice car, and they looked up from a distance. You mean all this is yours?
Said yes.
And he made sure everybody was standing very far.
So
Says,
they,
yes.
they don't hear.
So these are my security. And they gave him the loan. They suddenly found it was not paid. He died. So they went back to the village to
For
say,
the cows.
let's get to the movable assets. Did they find cows? There were no cows. He didn't own cows. You get what I'm saying? But it's the people that went there. They were bankers only on the commercial side with a checklist, ticking the dots.
Yeah.
Are you with me?
Their
No
security.
empathy. If they were in the shoes of that man, they would have walked in there and said, okay, how do we identify your cows?
Because they're
They would
supposed
have
to
known
have-
something about cows.
Yeah, the brand.
Is there a brand? So how do we know all these are your
Those ones
cows?
had multiple brands.
And I think somebody from Agriculture Science would be in a position to know that maybe. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But an economist, how? Me, I'm an economist. I didn't know those things until I practically went into them.
So now, please help me. How will these banks help us to develop this? method?
Firstly, correction, Pastor.
Yeah.
Banks don't help you.
They
Please,
don't.
no. Don't ever walk into a bank to look for help. If you want help, go to Lions Club, come to the church. You will get help here. Banks are in for profit. Please, when you walk through the door, they actually, what do you call it? They scan you to see whether you are profitable or non-profitable. They don't help. They don't assist. So somebody, big brother, has to cause them to help. Otherwise, it's not their
It's the
fault.
Bank of Zambia now.
Big brother has to
of
move in and say, no, enough is enough.
Bank of Zambia.
You lend to this sector, or the government enacted a wonderful act, Movable Assets Act. I was privileged to be one of the lecturers to teach that act. Movable Assets Act allows you and me to go and borrow and use our cabbages in the garden, our maize,
As security.
our goats, our clothes, our furniture, as security. I think it's been around from 2018, quite a long period. How many banks accept that? Now, I have to register them with PACRA, so they become recognized. Then banks can fall on them by simply going to the PACRA to search. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But who's pursuing that? The people. I live in a village.
The people don't even know that.
I live in a village. There are no title deeds there.
Now, sorry to cut you short, Brother Smarter. Professor,
First.
if the banks don't help me, and I'm a disciplined person,
Yes.
is it illegal for me to keep 10 million kwacha?
in the
bank?
house.
In
No,
the
it's
house?
not illegal. No, it's not. It's straightforward. There's no law in this country that prohibits you from keeping your cash. None. Many, many years ago, I advocated for it. When I said they should put a limit to how much cash somebody can have, or even transact in the economy. It was in the context of fighting money laundering. Now I see Bank of Zambia is pushing digital currency.
Yes.
Yeah, good development, brilliant development. Yeah? But still, there is no law, so I can keep cash.
So
And if they find it on me, I'm not guilty by virtue of it being there.
why is it
They have to prove I
when
stole
I
it.
get the money, a lot of money, and take to the bank, and they know this is why they have records.
Yes.
Why would they ask me for collateral for 30,000? When
There's a
over
mismatch.
and above,
You see, I don't think there's any turnover financing in this country. That's why they're asking for that kind of thing.
Collateral.
Yeah. They use your turnover to justify their yes or no, but not to use it as a reason why they should believe in you and lend you. So these are the gaps. Yeah.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
Rasmata said that if the banks were living up to helping people or developing the nation, there would be no Karova. There would be no...
Yes, because they would fill that gap. In fact, the microfinance itself was because there's this huge sector of the population that is unbanked outside of the main banking system, and yet they actually have money, but they don't have anyone to help them, even just for advice. I have money, I need to invest in something, I need to go to my banker for advice, because those are the guys dealing with money. But as he says, as you enter, they are looking, does this look like moving profit or not? So even just the welcomeness of the banking system itself. You know, I was looking at our, I think, the top 9 banks in Zambia and their customer satisfaction levels. There was something carried out in April this year. The best bank was FNB, and it had 76% satisfaction levels. And the last one, I think, was AB or something bank, which had 30% or something. So 76% is the best. Satisfaction is normally, we speak about this, what is called Sigma, Pastor, Sigma. So people are talking about world-class satisfaction is 6 Sigma, which is 99.9996%, which means out of 1 million services, you only make 3 mistakes. 3 to 4 mistakes. 2 Sigma is 69%. So our best bank is 2 point something Sigma. When globally we're talking about 6 Sigma. So I even thought to myself, no wonder I walk in every bank, I am dissatisfied. I walk away after sitting for a while. I look at the time, I look at the queue, I look at the time, I walk out. Because I'm like, wait, what's going on? Empty, there are no people saving. And then there's this queue, and the person comes, saves 1 or 2, stands up and goes somewhere, comes again, saves 1 person, goes somewhere, I walk out. Then I looked at that satisfaction thing, and then of course they also did the dissatisfied customers. And then the ones who are neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. Huge percentage, which means they are really saying, if there was a better bank giving me service, I would shift. But I don't have a choice, so I'll come here. Huge segment.
Let's open the lines and ask from the people of Zambia, how best
Can banks
work with the Zambian people
yeah.
to develop our nation?
Yes.
I agree with you, Brother Smata, that banks are just interested in our money, profits.
True.
Because it's externalized to someone sitting somewhere in Mauritius, in Dubai.
Yeah.
All they are interested in is profit. But before we receive any phone call, get the text messages, is it up to the government to ask the people of Zambia to form an indigenous bank?
No.
Shouldn't.
It's up to the entrepreneurs in the market.
Yeah.
Are you with me? There's nothing scary about a bank. But the way the banks are designed, they are scary. In real life, how many people have even been in a bank?
Yeah, this is what we are saying.
How many?
How welcome
They just stay outside and say, no.
It's not welcoming.
It's not welcoming. Even but you see, again, even Bank of Zambia has to start having other standards of how a bank should be.
Yes.
The decor in a bank.
Yes.
Or even dress code, for instance.
Yes.
Bankers are in tie, in suits,
Yes.
and the tie, and the blue shirt.
Yes.
Why not the way I'm dressed?
Yes.
Am I naked?
Because now the villager comes in there, he's scared.
For different markets, we should have urban and rural, for instance, as a start.
Yeah.
The rural side of our country has got a very different outlook. We should have bankers there that can speak the local languages.
Yeah.
And not speak
English.
Banking jargon in English on top of that. So these are the things we should do. It's not going back to the Stone Age. We can still have top of the art tools for those, who can internet banking, for instance.
Yeah.
That can still be there.
Yes.
But there's a banking that is meeting the needs of the illiterate or ignorant.
Yeah.
Let's pick up this call, and the calls, as they're there. I want to recommend this, Mr. Director. If you can, please focus on this book.
You have to lift it.
This book.
A little higher.
So, this one. It's called Essential Management and Leadership Toolkit. It's written by our very own Professor Munkumba. And I must tell you that all the MBA,
I need your signature.
all the MBA students are using this book in many countries. And you buy this book, it's only $50, which is about 850 kwacha. You invest in knowledge, you pick this, you are guaranteed to clear your MBA studies in this book. So call Camnet Station for Professor Munkumba's book. He lectures in Zambia, Tanzania, around the world. He's a visiting professor in many universities. Get this book, and may God receive the glory. Mr. Director, are there some text messages so that we can answer people's calls? Good evening, panel. I agree with you. Zambians must change behavior and mindset. Our surprise in Lusaka at Katungu in 2018, even I went at 06 hours to buy what I needed and found only one shop for a Rwandan national opened. And I said, no wonder they do better than Zambians. All Zambian owned shops
were
closed. This is Apostle Sakeo. Can you hear that? Because Rwandese, they know. Even their groceries. Have you seen that they are doing better than Zambians?
Yes, they are open into the night.
1988, I'm in Nairobi with some Boy Scouts. We went to Uganda and then went to Mombasa. Coming back, I think we reached Nairobi around midnight. I still remember the shock. But shops were open.
Yes.
In the bus I'm worrying. I said, no, what are we going to eat when we get where we're going? Restaurants were open. Shops were open.
Shopping malls.
So I asked them, per market. I asked them, I said, so what time do you close? So that to me is the attitude.
Mr. Director, please let's get the calls and let's get the messages. So, good evening, Pastor Chiluba and the panel. I like the program, but can't this broadcast be shared with the powers that be, so that this information should not just be drained? Kindly engage with the government and let them finance these great ideas, especially the Minister of Finance and National Planning. can come in and finance these great anointed ideas.
Sitali from Lusaka.
Or Sitali from Lusaka.
The saddest part about Zambia, I can speak from my heart.
There's another one.
There is another one there, Prof.
Good evening, sir. I think for any country or family to develop, leadership qualities matters. If we have leaders who have a short sight or poor planning and lack of big vision, development can't be achieved. Mostly, development and change
Takes time. So we must be determined to see change, even if it may take 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely.
Yona from Kitwe.
Absolutely. You were saying, Brother Smart.
The biggest problem we have in this country is this tag of politics. That's the biggest.
Yeah.
I will tell you, right now I'm tagged
What-
The
PF.
tag like what?
Me, I'm tagged PF or anti-government. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So I don't even have the courage, to be honest, to walk into a minister or maybe if I meet him in the car park. Because I said to myself, I just be told to get lost. Every day, when the PF came into power, I was tagged MMD. And it's true, I supported Rupia, but I was still Zambian.
But you see, this is where now the contradiction comes in. Professor,
Yes, sir.
under democracy, you are free to belong.
No, you are not. Sorry, our pastor, you are not.
No.
You should belong to our party, and that's it.
You know, but he's
Yeah.
saying ideally.
That's on paper,
And-
not in practice. That's on paper.
But who is going to correct this mess again? We are moving from one problem to another. We want to solve the problems of this nation.
Yeah.
It's like one preacher is going to be with the Lord. What's his name? Frederick Price. He says, why should you ask, before I drink this milk, how can a brown cow eat green grass
Yes, and
and produce white
white
milk? Why go into
We
Just drink it.
problems within ourselves.
Oh my God.
So, it's him talking again. We know him. That kind of thing.
This
So, you keep
is
to yourself.
what is going to sink Africa. I can tell you that.
I agree.
Because this is going to sink Africa. I can tell you that. When you have people, I was telling the powers that be, during the MMD campaign, we were the only station in Zambia. I'm speaking here. No television station gave the UPND the programs. As a pastor, I said, UPND, PF, they are all church members.
Correct.
My wife gave them 45 programs live. Tabokawana can testify that. Today they are in power. And somebody says, I don't like Pastor Chiwa because he's PF.
Yeah.
If I was PF, let's pick up this call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Is this Reverend Wadia from Furia?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead and contribute to this wonderful discussion, and good evening.
Thank you so much. Just two quick ones.
Yes.
On the regulatory part from government, when you talk about banking,
Uh-huh.
I feel very strongly that Zambia needs an indigenous bank. And it's not something that we'll be able to say, let government come up with an initiative to come up with a local bank. But like Uncle Smarter said, entrepreneurs, Zambians themselves, entrepreneurs will come together and say, okay, we have people who have got the financial muscle who can agree, team up together and then come up with a local bank. That would be able to service the interests of those who are at banks. And like they are saying, mostly those who may feel uncomfortable to walk into the bank. But again, on the regulation part from our government, I don't know how politicians who live in struggle all over the world and they see how other nations run their banks and their financial sector, how that they cannot get good things from those nations to come and implement here, or get brains like Uncle Matalia, Professor Mukumbaria. We have others as well. Get these brains and say, how can we our financial sector. It's very challenging that if today someone walks into the bank and they bank 200,000 water, but there's a red signal, red flag that so much money has entered someone's account. Is it the level of poverty that the country has gone to? The point where someone has got 500,000 in the bank, they are in trouble. Is this how our nation will be able to develop? Thank you so much, and good evening.
Well, Samantha, let's start with the reverse question.
Yes.
You say
Quickly say,
yeah.
not unfortunately, but, unfortunately actually, there is crime happening.
Yeah.
We can't run away from that.
Correct.
Corruption,
Yes.
thefts,
Laundering.
fraud, drug trafficking, tax evasion. Yeah? The proceeds of that are proceeds of a crime.
Correct.
So the idea of suspicion, right, is promoted in law so that, and generally, so that not everybody is accused. But if the money I have at home is money I have genuinely made, I've paid my taxes, I'm not a drug trafficker, I didn't steal it, it was not a fraud, neither was I corrupted. Do I care if somebody is going to start investigating it? No, I won't. Are you with me? Only those who have those problems are the ones who should be careful.
It is investigation at the point where they say, okay, this room is half full of money. How did you get this?
Exactly.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I'll explain.
Yeah.
Well, Pastor, if it was an inheritance, I'll say it's an inheritance. But I will explain without much ado. The other problem is on the flip side, the law side. These investigations, I've said it on this forum. Remember when you invited me to talk about the FIC report? I said, the problem is that they are playing in the gallery. Are you with me? It's like a doctor or a pastor. Now, I'm a doctor. Take off your shirt. So people start running in there, and then says, follow. Are you with me, Pastor?
Yeah.
I mean, you're really alarmed people. A doctor will normally, and me, I like to look at the eyes. I'm not telling you the secret of my doctor. When my doctor or nurse is taking my blood pressure, I look at the eyes. Yeah. When I see them going, I know it's high. So by the time she says, "What's the matter?" I said, "No, I know it's high. I know. I won't tell her how I knew." But the point is,
You saw the eyes.
the investigation side, they are playing to the gallery.
Yeah.
Somebody should stop them.
Yeah.
We should hear of Smata in court.
Yeah.
First time.
Yeah.
Not he was invited for interviews. He was given a warning and caution. No,
That's not news. Yeah.
that's not news. You're actually even scaring good money.
Correct.
Yeah.
And different from America and Europe. By the time you are appearing in court, they will have done groundwork.
Yes.
And
That's the point.
you are never even heard.
Yes.
But Pastor, it is financial intelligence. We have forgotten that word in between there. Intelligence center.
Yeah.
The opposite of that, the office of the president.
It's not a financial foolishness center.
No.
It's a financial
Intelligence.
center.
Which means things are done
Yes.
discreetly.
Yes. So the law enforcement agencies, the police, the ACC, all these others,
Drug enforcement.
their PR people should be trained to address this intelligence, not just to give out information.
It's like office of the president.
Yeah.
We hear anything.
Do you hear about
Yeah.
them?
No.
They are even in this room.
You can't hear
You get the
anything.
point?
Yes.
They're gathering information. If we knew that Udiapadia and Pakona Palapani camera, boss, even those who are not doing wrong would walk straight.
Today we have even some intelligence officers who come and say, by the way, I work for the intelligence. Office of the president.
So I understand that. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong with you having money. And by the way, it's not only the banks that you can take your money to. There's insurance. There are many other financial, casinos, cars, dealers, precious stones. There's a list of them. I think I counted 39 different areas where somebody can take their money. So it's not just banks. But the point is that let's balance this thing. Somebody somewhere, honestly, I understand you need to show like you are working. But where do you show it? In court. I was very glad when I wrote something last year or sometime about a financial crime court. And the current Chief Justice said they're going to set up one.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea. You go in the morning, by afternoon you are guilty or not guilty. No adjournment, no what, fast. And the judge understands these things. Let's not assume because he's a master of law, he's a master of these other issues. They have to be trained in those areas. Yeah. And if we have none qualified, there are a lot of retirees out there in the world. We have had Chief Justices taken from Zambia to go and be Chief Justice in another country.
Absolutely.
You see the point? We can also go and hire those retirees to come to fill up these spaces. We have a much bigger court. We get rid. 1 year down the line, we're still talking about this one, he could be a thief. We should have sorted this out in a very short time. And now look to the new ones who have come.
New things.
The new ones.
Who are still dealing with,
Because they are coming from the same society. So
yeah, it's the same
they
society.
can't be angels.
Yeah. But
You see,
this is an important point.
this country has a problem. I had a friend, may he so rest in peace, a very qualified lawman here, Mukelevai. He was accused for things he never did. He was a personal friend.
He was my uncle.
Mukelevai.
Yes.
Very close friend of mine. Zambia demonized him, painted him black. He lives here, he goes to South Africa, he gets a bigger job where Zambia was reporting. And here he was a DPP.
Even the first DEC commissioner, I think it's late, Mr. Is it Zulu, who was actually given a job by the DEC in America.
Yeah,
Here he was made to look like,
an idiot.
yeah. But this is the whole point. Everything should be held in balance. Yeah? When I remember when I posted on my Facebook, I said, as a Christian duty, my duty is to support the ruling government.
Correct.
I lost friends on both sides, actually. I don't far fence to you. But that's my Christian duty. I supported the PF government.
Yeah.
I supported the MMD government. Did I like their leadership styles? No. I opposed some of them even very publicly. You see the point?
But as a Christian, you are
Yeah.
I have a
mandated
duty.
to pray for the government of the day.
And to be a loyal servant
Yeah.
of the government in time.
Wow.
That's the way it is. You insult the president, for instance. We're digressing, but a point. You insult the president. When the Bible says that you should not speak ill of
Against the dignitaries.
the ruler of your people, then on Sunday go to church to pray. Which God are you praying to? Please tell me. Which God?
There's
But-
a problem there.
Yeah.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
Pastor Bwadia says
That's a good point.
we should start a local bank which understands
Yes.
the feeling,
Empathy.
the empathy is talking about. Is that
I
possible?
agree, Pastor, and my brother raised this. A villager comes. We had this interesting story in Tanzania where a Maasai guy comes with money, huge bucket, Tanzanite and things. Some would suddenly get millions. So he came to the bank, he looked around, it looked so strange. Okay, he brought his money. So they count it, then they write everything, give him a receipt. They went into a corner and stood and he was watching. Then he saw that the same money was being paid to the next guy who came in. He came with his spear. What are you doing with my money? I am still here and you are already stealing. He was ready to kill somebody. You need an environment that understands its people, and the people are free. The ambience is welcoming enough. I went to one of the banks, I won't tell you which one. I felt a little bit illiterate myself because I was trying to open an account for Amazon.com books and things. So there's a whole process to go through. I wished I had gone with my son because there was so much technology. And I found I was a little bit out of touch. And she's like, she's telling me now what I should do on the phone. Just punch that and when you go to another, she said like 9 things. And then I found I'm lost here. And then I was wishing I was in my other bank because now, what do you call premium? Or
premium.
Premium. Yeah, because there, even in Tanzania, I would just go there and I say, guys, I want this. Then they themselves, they do everything. They just show me sign here. I said, okay, let me just read what you have done. I read, then I sign. I don't do those things. This girl was telling me, do this, and then she goes on, she's talking to somebody else, she's saving, and I said, have you done? I said, what did you say I do? Do this, do this. And I said, look, you're too fast. Come on, this is too much. I was feeling a bit embarrassed. Now, I was feeling embarrassed with all my exposure. Now imagine a villager comes with money. The attitude is like, I mean, simuziva. So the guy feels insulted. He's a parent, he's a young girl, young boy. He walks out. So you need a bank that's empathetic, as I say.
I have not gone into the internet banking of my bank.
Yes.
I'm feeling.
Yes.
They've given me a gold card.
Yeah.
You get the point? Because when they print, it brings a password.
Yes.
Which now I have to remember and go to my phone and punch.
Yes.
So I wrote it down. I failed. I went back to the bank and said, I failed. Okay, why don't you put it in? And then I'll change the password.
Yes.
No. You have to do it yourself. I said, no, it's all right. I will continue coming to
What
collect
we
cash.
are talking about. No, but now what about the guy from the village?
When I could transfer to somebody's account, I can do all those things. But just a simple matter. And one day they even put on the password a digit I could not find on my keyboard of the phone.
Yeah.
So, what do I do, Pastor?
So user friendliness.
Professor Rasmata, I know that we can discuss this for weeks, but I think let's throw the thoughts out there that Zambia should rise.
Yes.
We need a bank, we need the Bank of Zambia to come up with concepts that will make my uncle in Chinsali feel at home.
Fall in love with banking.
I think once we do that,
Yeah.
Zambia will be a better country to live.
Correct.
Because people they fear to go to the banks.
Yes.
There was a time Rasmata had come from America many years ago, and you remember opposite post office, next to Cairo Chemistry, that's where duty free was.
Yes. Yes.
Duty free,
it was
where
over
we
there.
used to buy.
Correct.
I went there, I had the dollars.
Yes.
In the thousands. So I filled the trolley, I packed it, and at that time, that road was not a one-way, by the way. You could turn and go. I packed the vehicle right there at the duty-free, filled my vehicle, and I had a can of Coca-Cola, just going over, flyover bridge. Just by that filling station opposite Ivalino, I am stopped. Where have you gotten that Coke? Have you got proof?
Was that the time when we didn't have the Coca-Cola?
The Tarino.
Yes, Quench.
Quench. So I was meant to stop. I said, excuse me, where did you get this Coca-Cola? You are asking me over Coca-Cola. And what's your proof? I said, okay, here's a receipt. Here's my passport.
Yeah.
And I've got this money.
Duty free.
They say, where did you get this money from?
I was in the.
I felt like, are we in some jungle in Congo?
Yeah.
Where somebody can't know that people travel. But I think that primitivity is still with us. In certain quarters.
Correct.
You are being asked of things which are obvious.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think, like Pastor Wada said, we need to come up with something. My passion, Prof. Rasmata, is to have this nation developed.
Correct.
We
to
all-
see this nation
which other,
develop
which other country can we go
to
to?
higher
Indeed.
standards.
And banking should be one conduit for that development.
Yes.
As you said that banking should be what? Part of the development?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I mentioned the other day we were discussing that in East Africa, I was getting my banker requesting me to borrow without security. Can you please borrow $50,000? It is here for you. We know you. Just get this money. No security. I was the one
Like-
refusing.
You know, Pastor, there is the movable asset.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
I wonder, brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea because it moved the security from just land,
Yeah.
houses. But the consequences, has anybody sat to think it through? For instance, if one started a bank in Jeru village, where I'm coming from, I started a branch of
In
the bank
Rufunza.
there. Yes. And I asked the headman for 1 hectare for that bank. He asked me why. I said, I want to build a crow.
From one base.
So that if a villager comes to borrow and he brings a cow,
I keep it
I
there.
keep it here and I will employ a cowboy to look after that cattle, which is security for the bank. And I will employ a veterinary person
Make
to
sure
be checking it.
Yeah, foot and mouth.
All those issues. I said to myself, would Bank of Zambia accept that?
Chances are that it can.
That they probably won't.
Chances are.
So that security can only be hypothecated, meaning it stays in the hands of the borrower and not the hands of the lender. What if he's pledging
Yeah.
that security? Is there a stop to that? But these are the things we should think
out of the
through.
box thinking.
Aha.
Yeah.
What we need, Pastor, as far as I'm concerned, two words in banking. One, I talked about empathy. The second one is intra, not enter. I, intrapreneurs.
Yes.
Intrapreneurs. This word is unheard of in the market in this country. We talk about entrepreneur. No,
Yes,
intrapreneurs.
intrapreneurship, yeah.
These banks should allow for entrepreneurship. My second bank did. As a branch manager, I went out and did a lot of things with my team because I was allowed to entrepreneur. One classic one I can give you. I read in the newspaper on a Monday morning that a theft had happened at the customs house near Zikas.
Zikas.
A theft. The government lost 14 million kwacha those days. So from Kamala, I drove to the customs house. Can I see the director? And there he was, assistant director in the customs and clearing before ZRA. I said to him, sorry about what happened. He says, yeah, come young man. He showed me how they got it through the roof. Then I said to him, sir, you've been keeping 14 million kwacha here. He says, yes, what can we do? And the money comes on Friday. The money comes on Friday and we only bank on Monday. I said, what if, sir, I bring a bank in here? You just give me a room here. He says, what? I said, yes. And when your customers come, you value their property, the customer should pay, they go into the bank and deposit, and we give them a banker's check. And then the banker's check they give to you. That is possible. I said, why not? That's why I've come, sir.
Entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Entrepreneurship. I didn't wait for the MD to do that. I called the MD and I said, sir, I need your hand now. You have to see the boss in Livingstone. And he flew over without telling me. He calls me from there 2 days later and says, go to the place, start renovating.
So you started that bank there.
It started. I go into the University of Zambia, for instance, and Zanako had left. And I said to them, I need space to start a branch here. What? I said, yeah, the students are going to town to go and get their bursaries. It can be done here. We did it at UTH, the nurses and the doctors. Intrapreneurship.
Meaning
I do
everyone,
not see that.
Meaning, Pastor, every employee begins to behave as if this is my thing.
Yes. Now,
As intrapreneurs.
what happens in the banks now is the illustration I once gave you, where policemen come for parade and they are allocated places to go and work. You are guarding Bank A, you are guarding Bank B, Bank C up to Bank Z. Here are AK-47s. I will keep the magazine. That is the commander now. When a thief comes, use your cell phone quickly and phone me and say,
I need a bullet.
Boss, kuri bakawala rakuno. I will bring the magazine.
With bullets.
That's what's happening. You go to a branch, a branch, and you say to them, I would like to borrow 30 million 30,000 kwacha against works that I'm doing for you.
Yeah.
And the manager now starts writing a whole sheet of
Put it in
paper,
writing.
put it in writing, and they have to send it to head office.
For approval.
So they have foot you without the bullets.
Yes. Now, if one manager abused it, the system, do you punish the other 29? Why not just find a way of dealing with that manager?
Yes, exactly.
And you allow
The rest to continue doing the right
yes,
things. Yes.
you go to the bank with a large check to withdraw your money. The teller takes the check, sends it to the bank. Why? Why is it going to the bank? 1991, when we started the branch, I went to the tellers and said, all of you have 5,000 kwacha. You pay a fraud, you get sacked. It's your problem. Here are your tools. We used to photocopy
Make your decision.
signatures.
Yes.
We introduced in this market passport. Today, I'm sure your bank asks you for a passport size photo. Do you know where it came from? From my branch. We were the first ones to introduce passport size photos. We got a paparazzi from Rubama market and told him, you want money? Come and just stand outside the bank. Somebody comes to open an account, we say passport size photo. I didn't come and say, you see that there under the tree? You can go and get it there. Okay, they used to fade quickly, but we had something. You get what I'm saying? Because we were allowed to do what? Enter entrepreneurship.
You know,
box.
these are some of the ideas. Let's pick up the last few text messages and see what God has for us. Professor.
Good evening, Pastor Chiluba and your two impressive guests. This is one of the best national matters I've listened to. Much learning. Let us work around finding solution to changing our culture. Let people like your two guests go and teach in churches in addition to sermons and prayers. Dennis Mulenga Lusaka.
I hear you. I hear you. There are your invitations.
Credit facility somewhere not in Zambia. Is this continued? Credit, okay, somewhere not in Zambia. Okay. You can get a loan based on a good business proposal or idea. But in Zambia, that is a miracle. Credit assessment is based on the ability to pay back with bank jargon acronym Campari. George Senga Kitwe. Yeah, so there's no risky capital. Good evening, Pastor. How can we change this culture of hatred and jealousy in our country so that we can develop? J.K. Chilufya from Lusaka. Hatred and jealousy.
We'll talk about this some more.
Camnet TV, this program is very insightful. Keep it up. From Emiris Kuyokwa Masaiti.
Some more, my director.
It's rather saddening seeing how unhelpful the so-said banks are to our small-scale farmers. It's jumped off.
Yeah.
It's rather, that's the same one.
Yes.
This category of farmers cannot easily access credit from banks. I have on so many occasions engaged some banks to tailor-make financing mechanisms which could benefit the said risky category of borrowers. This program is great and hopefully some people are watching. Thank you, panel.
This is what you were saying, Brass Matter. Let's read that one. Good evening, panel. Really, it is not good. The banks behave our
It's kind
A mindset.
our mindset.
Yeah.
They need to be educated on customer care, public relations.
yes.
This is Mrs. Imuni from Livingston.
Okay.
The mindset.
It's huge,
Okay.
that one. Please.
Please, I'm asking your good advice. I got a loan
From
from Zanaco for 5 years at highly interest rate,
high interest
which are agreed to be deducting at 2,500 kwacha. I think this is per month. But this time the interest rate has become lower, and
they are still deducting the
same amount, as if the interest rate is still high, instead of reducing the amount of money. Why?
Please help
Brass
us.
Mata, you can answer that.
Walk straight into your manager's office and complain.
Yes.
By the way, the Banking and Financial Services Act provides for customer complaints. So in Zambia, you have a right to complain. It's a legal requirement. They must hear you. Complain like you have put in the text. If the manager doesn't give you a satisfactory answer, write to the managing director.
Escalate, yeah.
If the managing director of that bank doesn't give you a satisfactory answer, write to Bank of Zambia. There's supposed to be, I underline, there's supposed to be a banking ombudsman. It's in the law, but it's not in practice. I don't know what we're waiting for, because there are problems. There's supposed to be a banking ombudsman, meaning a moderator.
Yeah. An independent guy.
An independent person who listen to all the sides and come up with a solution.
Office.
You don't have to run to court to do that. But it's already in the law, it's not in practice. And that law was passed in 2017. Lest someone begin to think, he's attacking the government. It is in the law that was passed in 2017. Today is 2022. 5 years just to appoint an ombudsman. Somebody sleeping on duty.
Professor.
Yes, sir.
There are more text messages there, Brother Smata. There are more texts there. I don't like issues hanging. Don't like leaving them hanging. Can I ask that you answer some of these questions which are still there?
Yes, please.
Next week.
Okay.
God willing, yes.
Yeah.
We deal
Indeed,
with
God
these
willing.
issues
God
because,
willing, yes.
you see, my heart bleeds when I see the whole of Parliament goes to say, for you to be an MP, you must have a grade 12 certificate. When they are professors like yourself, professors like
I'm still smarter.
no, I'm just saying, there are so many brains that are going to waste.
Yeah.
And how do you develop?
Grade 12.
Surely you go and get a grade 12. And you say some of these grade 12s now, they can't even spell their name. So I am simply saying, may God bless this nation.
Amen.
Put all your brains together. You talked about Singapore.
Yes. The best brains.
I wish I had a degree. I wish I had a PhD or whatever, but I don't have. When I look at you people and your brains, I'm an admirer of what you have. The only secret thing about my life and that of my wife, Brass Mata, we are not far from the corridors of you intellectuals.
Amen.
I like thinking for myself.
Smart work.
It doesn't stop with us.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to be in the company of people that are really knowledgeable about what they're talking about. Because I learn a lot. I pick it up very quickly. I'm on the internet, I'm reading books. Because, you know, I left banking practice 2007, suddenly. This is 2022. Can I make a confession?
Please.
I've learned more about banking after 2007 than I did at 2007.
The nose buried in books they are punching.
I've learned more about banking. It doesn't stop. And it means I get opportunities to share this information and knowledge and pass it on to the young people and inspire them to better themselves than me.
Correct.
I'll try to send a text message to Honorable Musokotwane, the PS. I'll speak to them if they can next week, Monday. And those that I can, dear ministers, those of you are in my phone book, and probably send a text to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, so that your knowledge is not going to the ground. We need to develop this nation. This is not about UPND, about PF. It's not about, it's about the nation Zambia.
Yes, yes.
You know, why should Professor Rwandese come and take over everything?
Yeah, because we're...
And Zambians
attitudes.
are working and lifting boxes. I believe that God can do something with us and for us. I know we are in news time. Brass Mata, your last words.
I'll just emphasize this. Number one, we need some heart for this country. Number two, we need banks to allow for people to enterprise within the bank. Most organizations are falling apart because they don't allow for that. Too many stringent measures. People are in a straight jacket. They can't think for themselves and they can't go forward just because the rules are a bit too stringent. Where they go wrong, correct them. I believe in John Maxwell's principle. I'm a student of John Maxwell. Train them or trade them. So before you trade or fire somebody, did you train them? It was it was Ford who, when one of his workers lost him a lot of money,
Yeah.
he was asked to fire,
Yeah.
who turned and said, I won't. That will be, and he mentioned the same figure he lost as a mistake. Now that he has learned, he's going to be a better worker. Because he believed in training. I myself, me sitting here, if my bosses in 1985 did not have that attitude, I would not have been a banker. I passed a fraud, 110,000 those days. And they asked me to bring in my passport. And I did. Following day, I found a ticket. And I'm going overseas for training.
Yeah.
Really?
Because there was a skill missing, yeah.
My goodness. Professor,
Yes,
your
yes.
last word.
My feeling is twofold. First, that the banking sector needs a philosophical shift and begin to see themselves not just as predatory approach to just profiteering, but that they are also a vehicle to national development. And I think that should be the key driver. The way we tell entrepreneurs, don't go out to make money, go out to make a difference, and the money will follow. So if the banks see themselves as a vehicle to development, I think everything else then shifts. That's the one part. And then, of course, there is the part of the Bank of Zambia itself being not only a compliance institution that it is, but also how to help all these commercial banks to think out of the box and to allow them to do certain things. That might mean changing some laws. That's okay. Laws are made by people, and that's why we have a parliament. If there's a law that is an inhibitor, change it, amend it, repeal it, put something else. The ultimate thing is even banks are not an end in and of themselves. Even the law is not an end in and of itself. The end of all these things is human development. The people of Zambia themselves, that they live better. Everything really should look at that. And that goes all the way to leadership as well. Even politics, when they lose sight of the fact that it is the human development of Zambians that matters, then you see they begin to look at each other as enemies and they begin to fight because they've lost sight that they are there not as an end. Even politics not an end, it's a means to something else. We lose that sight and then we begin to do all kinds of things. So that philosophical shift for banks, even the central bank, and that goes to Zambians themselves, even our leaders, that philosophical shift has been lacking. Hence the fratricide. Or the brother kill brother, sister kill sister, sororicide, and the suicide. Because you've lost sight of why you do what you are doing. That's what I would ask for myself, that shift.
So in short, we should encourage the doctors to stop screaming when they say patient
Exactly.
without a shirt.
If forgets who he is.
Yeah, he forgets he's there to cure or to provide medicine.
Exactly.
He's in the press.
Yeah.
About a poor person and next everybody is stigmatized. It's not right. I don't think so.
Well, I'm so thankful, Professor and Mr. Smarter. Once again, those of you that need this book, you must get this, written by our own professor, Professor Monkumba Itsoni, $50, which is about 825 kwacha, surely, for your MBA degree with 825. I would make a call tonight or tomorrow morning when they are in offices.
In fact, Pastor, not to cut you short, for chapter 1 and 2, even children, if
Even
they read
children?
chapter 1 itself, because it's about life, they will be changed kids and they will become visionaries.
You hear that now?
Yeah.
On behalf of my wife, the CEO of this great television station, on behalf of the technical people like Mr. Freddie Monungwe on duty and Elias, and on behalf of the entire Camnet TV team, you are amazing. On behalf of the Healing World Ministries Church, the church that my wife and I pastor, you are just great people. To you, the viewers, I encourage you, keep watching Camnet TV, because Camnet TV is not just another channel. Remember, you were born for greatness. Until Monday next week, shalom, shalom.